This
Everyone,
con
oops. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ICG's Digital Academy webinar series. I'm Sally Alsop, the ICG committee member responsible for running our webinar program. So today's webinar is all about helping you to grow your business. And for this, we're delighted to welcome new ICG member, Paul Griffiths. Paul helps owners of market research businesses and insight agencies to grow revenues by implementing proven growth strategies. He has been supporting businesses in this way for more than 20 years, and in that time he has sold research projects, managed clients, and spoken to many heads of insight. Paul understands the challenge of growing a research business while also being a practitioner within it. In this webinar, Paul will be sharing 5 techniques and approaches that will help you more easily grow your business in a way that doesn't take up lots of time and resource. These hints and hacks are all things Paul uses for his own consultancy business growth and techniques and tips he uses to help his clients to grow. Paul would like this to be an interactive session as much as possible. So please, if you feel confident to do that, please turn on your webcam and raise your hand if you would like to ask him a question, or type your question in the chat box and I'll read your question out for you as we go along. Okay, so we are very grateful to Perspective for sponsoring this webinar. Perspective Research Services provides help at every stage of the data journey as an end-to-end experience or simply to dip into when needed. They operate one of the largest independent call centres in the UK and state-of-the-art viewing facilities in the heart of London. They provide qualitative recruitment, face-to-face fieldwork, B2B mystery shopping and data processing services. Before I hand over to Paul, here are a few more events we have planned for you leading up to Christmas and the end of year holidays. Please note the next webinar on the 24th of November, very topical as we've got COP27 happening in Sharm el-Sheikh at the moment. So this one is all about gaining a competitive edge through sustainability. So do sign in for that one as well. And of course, our Christmas lunch on the 1st of December. So our speaker today is Paul Griffiths of Client Advocates, and I will now hand over to Paul.
Thank you, Sally. So nice to see so many of you on the call today. As Sally mentioned, I'd like to try and make this as sort of interactive as possible. So I've got a very short deck that I can kind of take us through, but I'm very happy to kind of take questions and for people just to kind of to put their hands up and challenge and ask me stuff as we go along. Far better that we kind of have a useful, productive session than it's kind of just me waffling. And I just would add, just to start off with, that these are, as Sally mentioned, these are all things that I help my clients to do, and some of my clients have done in the past or do currently. But they're also things that I use for my own business. And everything I suggest to you here today is stuff that I do myself. And just to put that in context, I'm a single owner-occupier business. There's nobody else. I have no other resource to sort of support me. There's nobody else in the business. So everything I do here is kind of, a lot of it is based on kind of, well, just being practical and honestly low cost. To do this in such a way that if you are like me, you're a micro business, you can still do marketing, you can still grow your business, but in an effective and an efficient way that doesn't cost you too much time and too much money. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen. Now, forgive me, when I share my screen, it turns out I can't actually see any of you. So if anybody does want to pick my brains or ask a question as I'm going through, waving's not going to really work because I can't see your faces. So if you want to call me out, then just take yourself off mute and give me a shout or ask a question, and we'll crack on. But right,
I can also point people out, Paul, if they want to raise their hand.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So yes, so 5 hints and hacks to help your business grow more effectively. And what I've tried to do here, as I said, is try to do things that are practical. They're reasonably tactical, a lot of them. So these are not about having great big strategies for your marketing and sales. That's probably another seminar. But these are 5 things that if I was setting up my business from scratch now, or if I was trying to think about how I would grow my business more quickly, these are 5 things that I either would start to do from scratch, or, as I said, I currently do. But hopefully, it might help and add value to your business as well. And the first hint and hack, and it sounds like a really obvious thing to say, is reconnect and connect and contact your existing networks. When I start working with businesses and with market research agencies and micro businesses, one of the first things we always go through is, so who did you used to work with, and who did you used to know, or who do you know that actually it turns out you haven't really been in contact with? And invariably, what happens is that you go through the contact list and you go through your email list, or you go through your CRM system if you have one. And what it turns out is there are a load of people that you haven't probably spoken to for 6 months or 9 months or indeed years. And so the starting point for any sort of practical growth, when I work with agencies, is just to start with that initial point of, who haven't you spoken to for a while, and shouldn't you really kind of be picking up the phone and saying, hi, how are things, what's going on, how are things, how are things going, and maybe whatever happened with that last project we worked on, or what are you up to at the moment. It sounds really, really obvious, but people don't do this in a systematic way. So it kind of happens by accident, or it happens by chance. So my first hint and hack is really, as I say, just to reconnect and contact with your existing networks. And I'm going to stop sharing there for a second. So I suppose my first question to the group is, how comfortable and confident do we think we are about doing that reconnecting and that recontacting? Is anyone going to fess up that it's something that they kind of don't do enough of, or is it something that you think, yeah, Paul, you're talking nonsense, and this is just blindingly obvious? Anybody willing to kind of share or express an opinion?
I don't mind sharing.
Sorry, who was that?
Susie. It's Susie.
Hi, Susie.
Hi, Paul. We've spoken about this before, but I found, I think I feel quite intimidated often approaching people who I've worked with before, and find it really difficult. And I got advice, which is very similar to what you're saying, not very long ago, which is like, go through the list of everyone you knew or know, and like, choose the people you like working with, and then go and get back in touch with them. And honestly, I had a list of like 15 people, and 3 of them have turned into like really reliable clients. And these are people that I only worked with vaguely in the past, but enjoyed the projects I did with them. And now I've got like 3 new clients for doing it. So it's not, I certainly don't find it easy to do, and other people might find it much easier than me. It works. That's it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and I think your point about choose the people you like to work with. I mean, one of the things that I try and do is and we'll come on to the use of LinkedIn. It'll be one of my points, but trying to, when we've been in the industry as long as I have, and I'm sure as long as a lot of you have, you lose track of people, and you lose track of where they are and all the rest of it. And I try every couple of months to go into LinkedIn and just kind of go through some of my contacts and connections and see who's moved, or who's changed jobs, or who's changed companies. Because quite often, in fact, I've got a meeting tomorrow with somebody where it's an old colleague of mine. I noticed they'd changed job. I just dropped them a line on LinkedIn and said, "Oh, I've seen you've moved. I hope everything's going well. Congratulations." And they came back to me and said, "Yeah, no, we had a really nice chat on LinkedIn," which then developed into oh, well, we should really catch up and have a chat about things. what do you want to talk about? Which led to a, oh, well, they've got this problem with their new business and the growth they've got there. And, so it's turned into kind of from a, oh, how's it going, to a, actually, there's a genuine possible lead there for me. And I think you're absolutely right. Find those people who you've enjoyed working with in the past, whose positions have changed or are in new organisations, or you just think, oh, you know what, I haven't spoken to you for a while, and actually, you're really quite nice, and say hello to them. Heather's what Heather said. I feel something I find comes quite naturally to me. However, the issue comes when I get busy. It's easy to do this. Yeah, yes, Heather, absolutely right. And we'll come on to how one of my other tips is about kind of actually how you organise yourself and how you manage to do this when you are juggling the project work and life and all of the other stuff that inevitably gets in the way of doing this stuff. And I'll give you some my views and thoughts on that later on. So, but thank you for that. That's a really useful question. Mike, you
Mike's also
said,
asked a question. Yeah.
yeah, when you pick up the phone, are you mixing up email, social media? Absolutely. I mean, all the channels. Although actually at the moment, phone's proving to be really quite effective for clients and for myself. And I think it's because working all individually and working in a sort of a virtual environment, we've all got used to jumping on these video calls and doing all of this stuff. Um, and actually, in a couple of occasions, clients have said to me, "Oh, you know what? I actually picked up and dialed somebody, and they answered the phone. Like I almost fell off my chair. They actually answered the phone." So I think phone is a really effective way at the moment. WhatsApp. I've got a couple of my clients that have made some really good reconnections with clients using WhatsApp at the moment. That WhatsApp's I mean, I use it personally. I don't necessarily use it very much in my work life, and I think it depends on the kind of the closeness of the relationship you have with people. But if you've known someone well and actually, you've not spoken to them for 4 or 5 months, and you've got a WhatsApp connection with them, WhatsApping and going, hi, how you doing, and all the rest of it, people seem to feel obliged to respond immediately on WhatsApp in a way that they might not to an email or something else. So yeah, Mike, I mean, yes, all the channels you can do: phone, social media, LinkedIn, email. I mean, email's probably the trickiest one because it's the one that people find, I think, most easy to ignore or to kind of put at the back of their to-do list. But to Susie's point, if you're emailing hopefully people you like and they like you, and the conversation is kind of fairly discursive and fairly much along the lines of how's it going, how are you doing, I'm doing some interesting work over here, what happened about that last project, hopefully they will respond and come back to you. Has anybody on the call got any kind of hints or tips or owns or experience of their own about kind of how they've most effectively got hold of people or reconnected with old contacts?
How about taking part in ICG networking events? It's always a good one.
Well, you know what? That's absolutely spot on, because I think there's at least 2 or 3 people on this call that I think I just said hello to Vicky when we started. Vicky and I haven't caught up for way too long. That's a really good point. Actually, watch out, Vicky. There's going to be an email or a text or something heading your way after this call. I think that's a really good point. Networking is a good way of kind of and these sorts of events do definitely help people like us when we are all working on our own or working in smaller teams and smaller groups. And this is a good way of kind of saying hello to people and just reminding them that you exist. Okay, we've got one more raised hand. See all raised hands. Who was that from? George. Hello, George. You raised your hand.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, see if I can ever get it back down again. I've asked for references in the past, which I thought has been a good excuse to say to people what I'm doing,
Yeah.
remind them that we had a good project together in the past, and just get on their radar um, a bit. So you go, oh, I'm pitching for a joint qual and quant project with quite an exciting methodology. I wonder if you could help me out. They're looking for references from past satisfied clients.
Oh, what a
Maybe you could
I mean,
mention that.
that's a brilliant idea. I love it. I think that's fantastic.
Fantastic. Really good one.
In fact, I'm actually going to write that down because
What have
I'm going to
you?
start. That's something I'm going to do.
what, but will you fib? Will you make up one, or does it have to be one?
So I think asking for references is a brilliant idea, and actually, um, yes, and you can do it in all sorts of different ways. So you can absolutely ask for references as a means of connecting and recontacting. Um, it's also just a really nice way of recording good work you've done, and it's a kind of an aside, but you can do it on LinkedIn and ask people to give you recommendations on LinkedIn. Which also looks nice on your LinkedIn profile. But you can also take those. What I do is if I get a client who gives me a nice recommendation, I actually just on LinkedIn, for instance, I'll copy and paste that and stick it on my website as a clients who think I'm ace type sort of section. Um, so yes, so it's brilliant because you get somebody you're getting an excuse to reconnect and contact with someone and remind them how good you are. You get something that's hopefully in writing that you can use for your own social media marketing and all the rest of it. And hopefully it's true and you're actually going to you can use it to win some more work with as well. So I think that's a brilliant idea, George. Thank you very much for that. Ella, you've got your hand up. Hello, Ella. Oh, can we hear you? We can't. I can't hear you. I'm sure it was going to be brilliant as well. Type it, type it, type it. We'll just wait while Ella types that in. Hope she's got good skills. Anybody else got any kind of recommendations or ideas about how to kind of contact people or thinking of excuses? Hi, Dan.
Hello there. Hello, Paul. A good suggestion I had from somebody a while ago is just asking for advice on something. So one thing I've used, I was developing a new proposition and I took it to potential clients. Say, I'm thinking about this. I really would like your advice, your experience, your feedback on it. And it's a nice lead in to a more detailed conversation about maybe a future direction for your business or what they're working on, those sorts of things. Quite good to be quite open and candid with them about new ideas you've got.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea. I mean, when I set my business up 10 years ago, what I did was I kind of went out and I made a list of all the people that had worked with me in the past or I knew. And I went out and I said to them, look, I'm not trying to sell to you here. I
Yeah,
just want to ask your advice about my proposition and what I should be doing. And do you think this works? And inevitably, what actually happened as a result of that was one of those conversations turned into oh, well, if you're going to do that, that sounds quite interesting, and maybe we could do that, which then turned into my first commission.
yeah,
So I think someone said to me once who was very wise, an old sort of mentor of mine, chap called Trevor Richards, who some of you may know from old days in TNS. But Trevor once told me, he said, if you go and try and sell something, you'll get lots of advice from people about what to do. If you go and ask people advice, you'll end up selling stuff. And I think there is definitely something around that asking for advice. So thank you for that. Julian, I think timing is crucial. Too soon after the previous project equals pestering. Too long not staying in touch. Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think it's the tone of how you're using it. So, um, yeah, writing to someone 3 weeks after you finished a project, going, gives us a new job, kind of type sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely pestery. Um, but I think there's no harm after even after 3 or 4 weeks of a project finishing, getting back in contact and saying, oh, how did that go? And did you take that stuff internally? And what happened with the conversations around that? And is there anything more I can do to kind of help you socialize with it or deliver it into people? So I think it's about the tone of it. I think again it comes back to, are you trying to, if you're very salesy in the approach, then I think it can be pestery. But I think if it's genuinely trying to sort of say to people, is there anything more I can do to help, or showing interest in kind of the issues that you've been researching or the projects you've been working on, I think people kind of go, yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Hey Andrew, yes.
Hey, hi. We met at the wine tasting,
Yes,
didn't
we
we?
did.
I tested. I've only done this once, and I did it last night. Bringing two. So when you're taking someone out for a drink, or it was dinner last night, and I took two clients out at once, which I knew quite well separately, but I knew they would bounce off each other. So they quite liked the idea of meeting someone they didn't know, so they could swap ideas, and I'm sitting
Yeah.
there in the middle. So it was a reconnection social thing, but also giving them something back because they meet someone, they've got a new connection as well.
I think that's a wicked idea.
But
And in fact,
you have to choose carefully of who you bring
yeah,
together, of course.
yeah, and look, it comes out of that sense of being, genuinely authentic around the idea that I think these are two people who are going to enjoy meeting each other and have things to share and to kind of comment on. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Sorry,
Yeah, it was
Elo,
an
did you? Oh,
experiment
sorry, go
last
on.
night. Experiment last night. I've never done it before, and it went well, so I'm going to try it again.
Good. Well, hopefully you're not feeling too tired and emotional this morning as a result.
No,
Ella, you said you did suggest to me contact people, ask them to review your website, ask for advice. Yeah, brilliant. Uh, so Catherine said, I arrived late and might have missed this suggestion, but in addition to references, I also asked for quotes for marketing materials and send them their quote. Yep, I think that's a really, really good idea. Gosh, we are a creative bunch here. And then Chris has said I've used Christmas cards. Yes, I mean, why not? I mean, anything that kind of shows that you are a human being and interested in another person, I think is a good way of reconnecting and recontacting people. So yes, I'm all for Christmas cards. I last year I did a subscription to Jib Jab, which is this funny website where you can create your own animated videos using a cutout of your face imposed onto something like an elf or a Father Christmas, and singing a ridiculous song. And that seemed to go down very well. I got lots of people coming back, having me sent those out, coming back saying, one, you're a twit, but secondly, thank you very much for the Christmas wishes, and we should catch up in January for a coffee and to talk about how misguided you are about what you send to your contacts for Christmas. So yeah, why not? Why not? Right, I'm going to crack on because otherwise I'm not going to get through my 5. So I'm just going to share. Right, I need to share my screen again. So let me go back in here. Right, so tip number 2, and this is kind of actually related to what we've just been talking about, recommendations, is asking for referrals. And I should put my hand up here and say that the script that you've got on your screen there, please take a screen grab of it. Don't say I said this, because actually I didn't. This is a chap called Andy Bounds gave me this script. Andy is a sales and marketing guru. Check him out on LinkedIn. He's really, really, really good. I think some of his content is fantastic. But I think we've probably all sat there and thought, oh, maybe could I ask for referrals? And it is a cringe-inducing kind of thing to have to ask. Oh, and I feel myself squirming at the prospect of it. But Andy came up with this script, which I've put up here, which is kind of, I think, really quite effective. And the reason I think it's quite effective because I've used it myself, and I've got it to use referrals, but I then also now suggest to my clients they use it, and they've used it, and it's been successful for them. And the short and the long of it is, rather than ringing up someone awkwardly and saying, "Hey, would you mind referring me to somebody?" Which is cringingly embarrassing for you and probably for them. What you do is you ring up, and it's Dan's point about asking for advice. So you basically use a script that says, look, I see on LinkedIn that you know such and such, and can I pick your brains about kind of what I can do to connect with them? And because you're asking for advice, and hopefully you're asking people who like you and you've worked with and respect you and kind of think you've done a good job. What happens, and this is kind of magic as far as I'm concerned, but it's Andy's magic, so I'll tell you about it, is that if you ask them for advice about what you think I should do to contact them, people turn around and say, "Oh, well, actually, I know such and such. I'll send them an email, or I'm very happy to introduce you to them, or oh yeah, I think that's a really good fit. Why don't I connect you in?" Um, and blow me down, it does genuinely work. Um, so yeah, that's my second tip, is kind of go beyond where you're asking for recommendations. Although I thought that was as I say, I think that was a brilliant idea. But that script of asking for referrals, and just sort of try it out, I think. And I think you'll be surprised at how it might still be a bit embarrassing and a bit cringy, but it's far less embarrassing and cringy than outright saying, "Oh, would you refer me to someone?" So I'm going to stop sharing again for a second. Uh, has anybody ever tried? I mean, has anybody got experience of referrals and kind of how that all kind of works, and have they had any great experience? I mean, that apart from that script, has anybody got any other ideas? No, nobody likes referrals. Oh, Jill's put her hand up.
Hi, yeah, so I've only started doing this really recently, but I send out a kind of end of project feedback form to all my customers. And I recently added a kind of final question to that, which was, is there anyone else in your organization I should be talking to? And I have had someone fill that in going, oh, you should talk to such and such a person, which then allowed me to email them and go, I've just done this job with X. They've suggested I contact you. And I've kind of managed to have like a follow-up call with that person as a result of that, kind of opening the door and just making contact. So that's worked really well.
Jill, you are now the ICG's referral guru. That's brilliant. That's fantastic. I mean, that's a really good practical tip, I think, for kind of how to do it. And and most of us say we're going to do these post-project reviews and send out an email afterwards and the rest of it. I'm, Jill, you're obviously really good at it, but I suspect others say we're going to, and we never really quite get around to doing it because the project moves on, or you move on, or you're on to your next job. But I think that's a really good approach for how to contact people within other people within an organization. And actually, there is lots of evidence to say that you can get really effective growth from your business for you don't even have to go to different organizations. It's just about expanding your network and your connections into these organizations you already work with. So I think that's a brilliant hint. Has anybody else got anything?
I've got something.
Hey, Vicky.
Hey, Paul. When I was, and I'm not very good at the networking and the asking for advice, and I find it difficult and ask for referrals. But when I was starting out, I contacted an old client from a very big bank, and I knew that they wouldn't use just a sort of one-man band, an independent. But via LinkedIn, I messaged him and I asked him which agencies he did use to see if they needed any freelance help. And he gave me a list of like 5 or 6 agencies. And then I went back and said, do you have actual contact names in those agencies? So then I could message LinkedIn those individuals and say, this client has suggested I speak to you, I've worked with him. And actually, from one of them, obviously 3 of them didn't reply. One said, maybe, and one of them I've had loads of work from since. So it terrified me at the time, but it was successful.
That's brilliant. That's again just a top piece of advice, and really practical in terms of things you can do. So yeah, no, thank you for that. I think that's fantastic. God, there's so much good stuff here. There's so much good stuff. Right, I'm going to crack on and do number 3. So if I share my screen again, so that was number 2. Number 3, use LinkedIn to grow your business. Now, I'm sure some of you are going, oh no, I hate LinkedIn. I promise you, LinkedIn has at times saved my business and allowed me to continue working, particularly after when the pandemic hit. And very, very frank and open with you, my business hit a real set of buffers. And it is a really, really effective and cheap way to build your brand, to connect with people, to contact people, and it can be used to get meetings with old clients and people you've lost contact with, but also new people who you may never have worked with. You have to do that properly, and there's a process that I use to do that, and I with some effectiveness, I hope. But that's probably a subject of another call. But the things I would urge you to do on LinkedIn is first of all, refresh your profiles. Most people's profiles on LinkedIn are fairly flat and dull. They're a bit uninspiring, and they probably don't really actually talk to the benefit and the value you can offer to clients. So refresh your profile. The way the algorithm works is that the more you like, comment, and post regularly, the more your network sees of your content, and the more your networks will push your content out into the wider Linktoverse. So do use, do try and like and comment and post stuff. It doesn't have to be much, but do it regularly helps. Then also aim to serve and help, not sell. Nobody wants lots of, and I'm sure we all have them in our feeds. Nobody really wants lots of LinkedIn posts about their amazing product or their amazing service, or how they kind of the new methodology or the new approach or whatever else. It's just not really very edifying, and it's kind of, people are very cynical and skeptical about it. But there is value and genuine value in posting and commenting and providing stuff in LinkedIn which is helping to serve your audience. So for instance, if you've worked a lot in the charity sector and that's an area of interest and focus for you, and you want more work in the charity sector, and you want to build your brand with heads of insight and people in the charity sector, then posting stuff around charities and around the issues that charities face and around how to kind of overcome some of the challenges they might have will be a beneficial and a bona fide way of you kind of building your reputation and building your brand in that space. You're not aiming to kind of sit there and go, I'm brilliant at doing market research in the charity sector. You're showing and evidencing interest and technical knowledge and industry knowledge that will help you and make people realize that you're a good person to have around in that sector. The other thing to do is to try and connect with people. And I always say to my clients, and I do it myself for myself, is set yourself some targets for the number of new connections you want to try and make. One of the things that I've done that's quite effective is if someone looks at my profile and I think, oh, that's an interesting person, but I'm not necessarily connected to them, is that I then send them a connection invite. Now, on connection invites, you must always send a personalized note. Please don't just press connect and then expect people to connect with you with no rationale or understanding of why they should connect with you. LinkedIn is it works best when you start to create conversations, and nobody in their right mind is going to accept a connection invite from you, and kind of and for you to be able to start a conversation if you don't justify why you want to connect with them. So write a little polite note. I saw you looked at my profile on LinkedIn. I post on, whatever it is you post on, or I'm interested in this area, or I help market research agencies to grow, which is kind of what I say. And it would be great if I share content on that. It would be great to connect. But do try and kind of push yourself to connect with new people, because that's the basis on which conversations and new opportunities arise. And the final point, actually, and I think guys can do this, and we can do this at the ICG, is help each other out. So the way the algorithm works is when you post, within the first 90 minutes, if you get lots of nice responses and reactions to your post, comments, likes, people sort of sharing it and the like, then actually that helps push out your posts to a wider audience. And the algorithm goes, oh, people like this content. This is good content. We'll show it to more people. So don't be embarrassed to band together. We should band. Well, in fact, I would suggest we do band together as a group. And if you can see people on the ICG who are posting stuff from their personal LinkedIn accounts, then do like it and comment on it, and don't just sit there and go, oh, that's a nice comment, and don't do anything with it. Actually do something active, because it will help them, and it will also help you with your network, because the algorithm also encourages people who are liking and commenting and interacting with other posts. It helps you with your own posts. So that's LinkedIn. I'm just going to stop sharing again for a second so we can get some comments and thoughts on that. I know some of you, definitely are active on LinkedIn and use it as an effective tool, I think. But has anybody got any kind of comments or thoughts or issues around using LinkedIn that we can kind of talk about, or I can help you with?
I have just a word of caution to add to this. I think LinkedIn is an amazing tool, but just be very careful about the people that you do connect with on LinkedIn, because there are some unscrupulous people out there who will pretend to be people that they're not, etc. So just a word of caution, like with any online security, be a little bit cautious before you connect up with people.
I think that's excellent advice. And it's one of the reasons why having a really rich, decent profile is a good idea, because, the bots and the people who are pretending to be people on LinkedIn, you can actually very quickly spot them, I think, if you go into their profiles and start to sort of look at, recommendations and who they're connected to, and, all those sorts of bits and pieces. So I think, yes, as with all these things, a word of caution. But honestly, my business would not have survived the pandemic without using LinkedIn. So what's that? So Nanda said, don't be tempted just to post up on LinkedIn and hope someone will see it. If creating an article, also use an excuse to get in touch with under context. Yes, Nanda, really good advice. There is no harm in reusing your content on LinkedIn in lots of different formats. So yes, by all means post it, but then also DM it to people. I think that's a really good idea. You can also, if you're writing a blog post for your website, or if you're minded to write a blog post, then by all means put it on your website, but also then post it on LinkedIn. Then also send a DM to some people, and then also if you've got an email kind of capability within your CRM and you're using a CRM system, then send it out as an email as well. You reuse content as many times as you possibly can. The one thing I would say about LinkedIn, and this is more of a word of caution, is it's a momentum game and it's a resilient game. So if you post something on LinkedIn and you haven't posted for 3 months, then don't be surprised when not a lot of people see it. So what I try and do, and what I would recommend you do too, is think about a cadence about how you post. So, maybe if you can post a couple of times a week, and by post, I don't necessarily mean writing your own stuff, but if you curate other people's content or other articles and other things that you find useful, and you're doing that a couple of times a week, when you do come to post your own blog or something you've written yourself or an opinion piece, that will have more reach and be more effective if you've also been posting and curating other stuff. But yeah,
Paul, sorry.
yes. Hi, Dan.
Hello, sorry to interrupt. When you say post and curate, specifically what do you mean?
So I mean things like if I, so what I try and do is if I find an interesting article on B2B marketing that I'm reading as part of my kind of thinking and research and all the rest of it, that I kind of try and do, I will post that on LinkedIn, but I'll post it with a little comment to say why I think it's interesting or why it's relevant and stuff. So that's what I mean by that's not me writing my own content. That's me finding other people's content and thinking, you know what, my network I'm interested in this. I think it's relevant, or I think it's controversial, or I agree or I don't agree. But why don't I post that out to the wider world to kind of see what they think and to help and kind of get other people engaged in the conversation. Does that make sense? Cool. I think Dan, you wanted to say something. Hi.
Hi, yeah, I just thought I'd share something. It's sort of related. It's related to LinkedIn, but it's something that I've been thinking about more recently, which is like just thinking about my local kind of like network and bringing that into LinkedIn as well. So I've recently been to a few local networking events that were like near me. So I'm based in Leeds, to meet other, small businesses, specifically through like the Chamber of Commerce, which is in Leeds. And what I've kind of been doing there is, even if their business isn't in market research, just sort of connecting with them and saying, let's connect online. And I found that that's been just as helpful and supportive in the sense that, those kinds of people have also got small businesses, and that's a bit of a sounding board as well. But also, I actually went to one last night and met someone who is a member of the ICG, so small world. Yeah, Elaine Morris. So yeah, I think that's another thing I feel like I've really benefited from, sort of finding my local network and kind of going, how can I bring that into my online kind of, contact base, I guess, and found, that's been really helpful. And met some people that I actually met a guy from a social media kind of agency last night who I kind of thought, actually, one of my clients would really benefit from someone like that I can maybe bring in on a joint proposal. So yeah, that was just something that I thought was kind of adjacent to this that I thought was worth mentioning.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And part of the trick, I think, with growing your agency is understanding that actually you need to have conversations with people and you need to have that interaction, and that might be growth. That might be growth because you're talking to someone directly who might use your services or something else. But it might be actually, as you say, you meet somebody else and it gives you a bit of inspiration or gives you an idea about what you should do with your own business, or it gives you a bit of support and help because you're trying to fix a problem or sort out a problem. And actually that's a kind of, they give you a perspective which then helps you to unlock a problem or find a solution to something, and that kind of leads to some growth. So I think that's great. I think that's a really good suggestion. So thank you. And I've got Nanda polls. Yes, really good engagement. You get really good engagement with polls. On LinkedIn, the best way to get engagement, and you're going to hate me for saying this, is you do video. So without a shadow of a doubt, and I know Susie's laughing at me because I keep banging on to Susie about doing videos, and I swear, if before I retire, I'm going to get Susie Mullen to do a bloody video on LinkedIn. But it's like my life's aim. But video is a really effective way of engaging with people, and the likes and the comments and the engagement you get from video is far higher than any other content you will do. But again, that's probably another seminar all in itself about kind of how you can cheaply and effectively and engagingly do content on LinkedIn. But actually, it is possible. Andrew, did you? Yes, hi, Andrew.
Seeing Dan's face reminded me. Hi, Dan. to your point earlier about supporting each other on LinkedIn, I would take that a bit further. I think when people ask for recommendations on LinkedIn, they tend to go for their clients, which is great, but we can recommend each other. So Dan and I worked on a project and we did mutual recommendations on LinkedIn. A potential client referenced Dan's recommendation on my LinkedIn where he name checked the client. The client hadn't recommended me at that point. They have now, but at that point, all they picked up on was the client's name. So we need, if we support each other and we work together, recommend each other, and even recommend some of your better suppliers. I get recommendations sometimes from some of our suppliers, you know, saying that they're really good, the way they approach their projects, that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be just from clients. And it just builds your, okay, they know what they're talking about, they're a good person, they're easy to get on with, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I think that's a super idea. I mean, in terms of how you kind of can use recommendations as part of your posts, I think the cadence of LinkedIn is quite interesting. So what I would always suggest is that if you're doing 10 pieces of content or 10 posts or 10 bits of activity, what you can probably do is you can do 6 or 7 that are curated content, so content that you've not necessarily written but you found from other places, and you can kind of share it and comment on it and say, oh, I think this is interesting. You probably then want to do, if you've got 6 of those, you can probably do, or 6 or 7, you can probably do 2 that are your own thoughts. So that might be a blog piece, or it might be an art, you know, something you've written, or something you feel strongly about, or something that you feel is worth sharing with your audience that you've written and created yourself. And by doing those 9, I think one of the things you can then do is you almost earn the right to do one show off type post. And by a show off type post, I'm talking about something like taking a quote from, you know, a recommendation and putting it up and posting it and saying, you know, isn't it nice when you get lovely quotes like this, and then you give your quote, you know. So it's something that kind of, but you don't want to do that unless you've added value to your audience and your network by doing the other 9. If you're just doing the show off, I'm brilliant, aren't I amazing stuff, I don't think it really washes. But I think you can earn the right every now and then to kind of go, actually, I'm quite good, but you have to stage it in the cadence of everything else. Gosh, look at the time. Right, I've got 2 more to get through. We're going to do this. Right. So that's LinkedIn. The 4th one is outsource where you can. And one of the things I realized very early on when I was setting my business up and running it was there was a whole load of stuff that I needed to do for my business that I was either crap at, honestly, or wasn't very motivated about, or it just never kind of got onto my radar screen because there was always this other stuff going on. And I very early on in my jobs, that my new this business, started using a virtual PA and a sort of somebody to kind of help me do stuff. And it sounds very highfalutin. It's really, really not. And actually, when I looked at the finances of it, the cost of paying somebody, you know, I don't know, 30 or 40 pounds an hour to do a load of stuff that I know I should do, but I never get round to, or I know I need to do, but I'm not very good at it. It far, you know, that cost is hugely returned in terms of the time it frees me up to do things, the time it gives me to think about stuff and be creative about what I do with my business, and kind of, you know, the content I'm posting, or the ideas I've got, or pitching, or doing the sales and marketing activity that I'm doing. So I would urge you, it doesn't have to be big bucks. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it is a really, really effective way of freeing up your time so that you can do the things that are most focused on growth for your business. I don't know if anybody's got any experience of kind of using a virtual PA business or one of these businesses that kind of helps out with stuff? Yeah, Dan, you do.
Well, not virtual PA, but talking about what we're good at and what we're not good at. I'm dreadful at cold calling. I'm sure most of us hate the prospect of just approaching people out of the blue. So for the last couple of years, I've worked with an organisation that does that. They really know the research sector, and they just send all the emails and chase everything up, and then hand me a lead that's very warm. They're interested in what I do, and then I get to just have the conversation, which I'm happy to do. So I don't have any of the legwork, and I think that works really well. I mean, it's been expensive, but it's more than paid for itself.
Yeah. And I think it is definitely a question of kind of doing that sort of investment versus return calculation. And for me, things like, just admin-y stuff that I can spend hours and hours doing, and come out of the rabbit hole at the end of it and go, what have I really achieved here? Whereas giving a brief to somebody else to say, can you do this? And them saying, yeah, it'll take us 3 hours and it'll cost you 90 quid. And I go, oh, 90 quid. And then I think, actually, you know what? If that takes me 3 hours, it won't take me 3 hours, it'll take me 6. But even if it takes me 3 hours, what do I charge myself out for my clients? Or what's that in terms of, other stuff I should be doing on my to-do list? It's a really, really good return on investment. So yeah, I mean, there are lots of virtual PA businesses out there. I've used one for a long time, but there are lots of them out there. Some of them are national, some of them are local. But do kind of, if you're struggling to find time for things and you're struggling to kind of think about how to grow your business more effectively, do think about the things that you can kind of hive off to other people at relative low cost, so you can focus on doing the stuff that you really need to. George uses a grad. Yeah, perfect. Very sensible. And Jag says they do incentives and chasing. Yeah, completely. Yeah, great. I mean, if that frees you up to do the things that you're good at and are going to generate more value, then absolutely spot on. Right, I've got one more slide. Let's share that. Right, so the final one is use a simple CRM to organize yourself. And it was the point that was I made at the start about kind of, how do you find the time to do this and how do you get organized to follow it up? So I didn't have a CRM system, and then because I didn't really need one when I set the business up, or I didn't think I needed one. And over the sort of 6 or 7 years that I ran the business before COVID, the business ticked along quite nicely. I was going to some networking events. I had lots of referrals, lots of recommendations, and I grew my business kind of organically that way. When COVID hit and suddenly all my clients went, oh, sorry, I've got no money. I went, oh, I've got to work out a way of kind of connecting with people and contacting people. So that's when I started using LinkedIn far more. But I also at that point said, look, because I didn't have much else on, I really should, if I was going to set this up again from scratch, I'd use a CRM system. So I went out and did some research, looked at only free ones because I didn't want to spend any money. And I found a free CRM system that I could basically set up myself. And I've, most of them in the marketplace that I came across, they have some self-learning or some e-learning that you can sort of get yourself to use the system. It's been a huge game changer for me and my business. And in the businesses that I work with, the agencies that use CRM systems to do some of their sales and marketing organization are and I say this, they are genuinely the businesses that grow quicker. When I look at the criteria of a quick growing market research agency or business, the proper use of a CRM system is a real game changer. And you can use it to do various things. So you can also use it to stay in touch. So it kind of gives you a list of all your contacts and the people you're regularly in contact with and want to talk to about, and it kind of, it's a central place rather than having it on your phone and in your email and on LinkedIn and all the rest of it. I use it as a to-do list. So after I've had a meeting with a client or after I've had an engagement with a client, I'll write up some notes and I'll set myself a little task follow up to say, follow up with such and such in 3 weeks or a month, or send them some content. And then that pings up in my diary and I go, oh, I've forgotten I spoke to them a month ago. I need to do that. Yeah, thank you very much, CRM system. And I kind of then act on that. You can also use it to track your opportunities and your leads and your proposals. And I think one of the observations about quick growing or businesses that grow more quickly is they're very good at tracking those early stage conversations. So they keep track of and focus on not necessarily the outputs in terms of revenue and growth, but the inputs in terms of number of meetings, number of conversations, and how you are tracking those conversations and those meetings and those leads and turning them into business opportunities and proposals. And then, of course, you can also use it for marketing. So you can do email marketing and you can plug things in and all the rest of it to kind of do some regular marketing. But I would strongly urge you to use a CRM system. Any recommendations? Well, I use the free version of HubSpot. The paid version of HubSpot is kind of got lots of bells and whistles. I'm not sure I'd ever use any of them or most of them. And indeed, a lot of my clients have gone from using the paid version of HubSpot back to the free version of HubSpot. But I would, HubSpot's a good one. MailerLite, don't know that one, but I'm sure that there are lots of these things out on the marketplace. But go and check them out, because as I said, it's been a real game changer for me and for my business. And as I say, most of my clients who use a CRM system. Oh, thanks, Mike. That's very kind. I'm very mindful of the fact it's time to wrap up, and that's been a very whistle-stop tour. Yes, I could talk about this forever.
Thank you very much, Paul. That really has been incredibly useful. I'd just like to, before everybody logs off, I know you offer your own services to support businesses if they do want to develop. Could you just tell us very quickly what how you offer your services and how much you charge for that, if anybody does want to follow up on that?
Well, that's very kind. So it depends on the size of business you are and your needs and your requirements. One of the things I do for people, and I have a number of clients who are actually in the ICG. I tend to offer a kind of a light touch consultancy proposition. So essentially, it's a number of sessions over the course of, say, a couple of months, where we go through your growth problems and your growth challenges, and kind of like we've just done in this call, we have a discursive conversation, and I give you my advice and I give you some help and I set you some things to do for the next session, and I charge £1,500 for that. It's kind of and we can the agenda can be packaged around your particular needs, but that's for 6 90-minute sessions over the course of however long. But there's lots of other stuff I can do, but that's for generally for organizations that are quite small or where they're just embarking on their growth strategies. That's kind of what I tend to do. But thank you for asking the question.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Paul. I think we really do have to go now. So it just remains to say thanks for the time that you spent and giving all the advice, which has been really interesting, really useful. I've certainly picked up one or two great ideas to follow up on. Thank you to everybody for joining us today. Hope you found it useful, and do come back. We've got another one in a couple of weeks' time on sustainability. So do join us again for the next webinar. And we look forward to seeing you on here again in the future. Bye, everyone.
Brilliant.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much for putting up with me.
Paul.
Cheers.
Thanks, Sally.
Bye, everyone.
Well done, Paul.